What's up, everybody? It's Dynasty Mir. Search for a Huru. Let's get some more people in the chat room. Today's topic, this afternoon's topic, is 1 o'clock in Atlanta, ATL. Today's topic is ADOS would at the very least, be considered second-class citizens in the ADOS homeland of Liberia. Why is Liberia important? For some reason, I'm just surprised that ADOS, including me, that we do not discuss Liberia. Liberia was a country that was founded by free descendants of slaves, ADOS. But for some reason, we do not discuss Liberia. I don't know why. What we were able to accomplish on our own as freed slaves in Liberia is remarkable. The adversity we face here in America, slavery, racial terrorism, then for us to leave that and to go to Liberia and build should be celebrated. You know, in fact, I have some old, my dad used to have business interests in Liberia. And so when he passed away, rest in peace, he left me some of his Liberia coins. Now, this right here is, see, there you go. You guys can see that. That's President William Tolbert, ADOS. And guys, when I say ADOS, I say it in regards to the claim that we have and our reality that we have against the U.S. government. I don't agree with the majority of what ADOS says or the rhetoric. Let me put that on record, except for that we have a claim for the unpaid labor that our ancestors put in, the descendants. I agree with that. But a lot of this other stuff, I just don't agree with. But anyways, so this is a Liberian coin. All right, this is from 1976. Like I said, my dad used to have interest in Liberia. He would travel to Liberia. And when he passed away, I got some of his Liberia coins. So you guys see that? Is that upside down? Yeah. On it, you have ADOS, man, William Tolbert, the president, former president, rest in peace, of Liberia. Here's another Liberian coin right here. This is $1. This is from 1966. I got another coin over here too. This is 50 cents. Liberia coin right here. Another Liberian coin. But what's the importance of this? ADOS had their own nation, controlled their own infrastructure, controlled their own money, printed their own money, controlled their own manufacturing, controlled everything at one time in history. This is my dad and my half-sister, or sister, half-sister in Liberia, right here. This is a picture of them. Controlled everything. Municipalities, resources, central bank, controlled everything. And for the life of me, I don't understand why the end game of ADOS won't be to go back to that. Get your check, get the check that the U.S. government owes you, and then go and build a nation of your own. And everybody has a stalling tactic or excuse why either A, you can't build a nation of your own again, or B, why you can't integrate back into an African country or tribe. All these excuses I hear. That I hear about in regards to building a nation of your own. Here's the proof. We did it. We did it. Here's the proof. Here's our money. For everybody that says we can't build a nation of our own and has every excuse in the building of why we can't, here's the money. Here's the currency. Here's our currency. Liberian $1. Here it is right here. It's right here. Our faces on it. You know, I hear people that are upset that I guess Harriet Tubman was supposed to be on a $20 bill. And it's been delayed. Dude, we've had our own money before. It's right here. But again, just the stalling tactics and the excuses I hear on why we can't do it again, or why that is not the end game. Now, of course, the excuses and the stalling tactics are, well, look at the coup of 1980, the coup of 1980. Look at the coup. What's another one? The Ghanaian woman who was killed in Ghana. I think it was like I think this is back in like 2010. Oh, look at that. You guys have two excuses, two stalling tactics in a word of holism. You have only two Negro stalling tactics that you can give in regards to why you can't create another nation of our own, or why you can't integrate back into an African country. But I could give you a whole damn timeline. Slavery, being castrated, or women raped, bred like dogs, treated not as a human. End of the Civil War, Reconstruction, land stolen from us. Didn't get our 40 acres and a mule. Racial terrorism, Black Wall Street being destroyed, Rosewood, New York race riots. You had the Red Summer, in which African American soldiers who were returning home were lynched and killed in their uniforms, were treated worse than prisoners of war from Nazi Germany. What else is there? Same thing after World War II. You brag about fighting in the American Revolution. You were still slaves. You brag about fighting the Civil War. After the Civil War, you try to migrate to the North, treated like crap. Everything taken from you, still treated as fifth-class citizens. World War I, Red Summer. World War II, same thing. Korean War, you're being used as a guinea pig, getting all types of weird experiments done to you. Let me continue. Almost there. Let me continue. Vietnam, treated like crap, to the point where Viet Cong, the Vietnamese soldiers, were saying, "Black man, why are you even here? Like, what are you fighting for?" Now, recently it was discovered black Navy pilots were giving racist hand signals. Then you got Central Park 5, might as well be Central Park 6, Part 7, because it's going to continue. Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, shoot. I mean, you guys know where I'm going. I don't know. Every day there's a new black person who's been exonerated after spending 40 years in prison for a crime that they did not commit. You guys cry and get emotional about the Central Park 5, but then want to go vote for Joe Biden, who signed a 94 crime bill. But the only excuse you could give for not building in Africa is because the coup and a Ghanaian woman was killed. Come on. We had Liberia. I'm not saying there has to be one country that will absorb 50 million black people. I'm not saying that. We could be spread all over. But we demanded Liberia and got it. But for some reason, people think it can't happen again. And it's already happened once. But at the end of the day, Liberia is still an ADOS country. I mean, if 22 million people could live in Lagos, Nigeria, we'll say Liberia is probably what, 5 times? Liberia is what, maybe 7 times the size of Lagos State? Maybe 4 times the size of Lagos State? So if that alone could absorb 22 million people, obviously it has issues with its infrastructure. It needs work on its infrastructure, but there's 22 million people there. Then Liberia could absorb 40 million people. And don't give me it can't happen, because we always brag about how we built Kemet. We always brag about how we built America. Then damn it, we could make it so where Liberia could absorb 40 to 50 million black people. In no way as a black American would I go to Africa to live. I would expect nothing but trouble walking into someone else's house expecting them to change for me. Do you expect America to change for you? Has America changed for you? That's why I just don't understand. Your stalling tactics make no sense. They get in trouble in America for the past 400 years. Worse than trouble. You've been catching hell in America for 400 years. Liberia could host 40 million people. It could. And all the bragging about building and all this we could do, we could have our own nation, your own money, build your own infrastructure, and there you go. Liberia could host 40 million people. And again, Liberia is a country that was founded by ADOS. Then low key, kind of indirectly, you got Sierra Leone. What's Sierra Leone? So at the end of the Revolutionary War, before the Revolutionary War, British promised black Americans that they fought on their side and won the war, that they would give them freedom. Obviously, British lost. Those black Americans went to Nova Scotia. Then from Nova Scotia, they went to the UK, London, whatever you want to call it. Once in London, they're like, hey, y'all owe us some money, Britain. And instead, Britain sent them to Sierra Leone. So Sierra Leone is another country that for the most part was founded by ADOS. But instead of going to the US government demanding what is rightfully ours, that check, and then taking that money and going back to the land of, because you guys are going to talk about bones being buried, bones being buried. You have bones buried in Liberia and Sierra Leone too, of our ancestors who left. Easy, Kelsey. The price of living in Africa is cheaper, way cheaper than it is here in America or Canada. If you could make $2,000 a month, figure out a way to make $2,000 a month, you could live like a king in Sierra Leone and Liberia. If even that, $1,500 a month. I'm surprised that this is not brought up. You know, ADOS doesn't want to bring up Liberia for some reason. I'm shocked. I mean, we had our own infrastructure, own everything, own country that we built from scratch. But in the words of Holipsism, you would much rather stay in America and continue this Jekyll and Hyde relationship with America. Most Africans have no problems with African Americans coming to Africa. That's true. That's true. It's the truth. I would rather get the check from America and sit down with Liberians and figure out how we could work things out versus what you guys, I don't know what the hell you got planned here in America. That makes more sense to me. Get your check, go to Liberia, build Liberia. Stop using the stalling tactic of the coup and some woman being killed in Ghana. That's all I'm saying. Shout out to King Raw. Well, Alicia, that's why you go back and you build. Again, Kelsey, all this stuff we talk about, how we built pyramids and how we built America, why not? Why not build a country of your own that was already somewhat, the foundation has already been set by ADOS? For all the ADOS, it would be a great opportunity to go to Liberia. In fact, there's a huge protest coming up June 7th, where a lot of people are dissatisfied with the current government. You go, you be resourceful, come up with tangibles and solutions for the Liberian people. Think there's only 4 million people in Liberia. I haven't done a 180 on ADOS. The thing I'm saying, I agree with ADOS is that there is a claim against the United States government. I agree with that. But some of this other stuff, you know, because once I started asking the question, what's the end game? And basically what I'm getting as far as the end game is to continue this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde relationship here in America. That don't add up to me. That makes no sense. I actually met with Dr. Ericana here in Atlanta. Bawoni, again, most blacks are in poverty here. Kelsey, what is the objective of ADOS? That is for the reparations claim, okay? Again, once we get the check, it would take us somewhat out of poverty, Kelsey. I swear, all these stalling tactics, goodness. That's all I'm saying. And everybody that says we can't do this, we can't do that, we've already did it. Liberia was thriving for what? Let's see, about 150 years, 140 years. Liberia was thriving. Liberia set the standard of how an African nation should be ran. Don't believe me? Look at Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah loved Liberia, loved Tolbert. Kwame Nkrumah absolutely loved Liberia and the standard and the example that is set for African nations. Guys, let's get these likes up. We have 159 people watching, only 31 likes. Let's get these likes up. So again, reparations needs to be multi-generational. I understand that. I understand it. But do you stay here, continue to complain, Central Park 6, Central Park 7, the Central Park 5, then we have when the Central Park 6 happens, here comes another documentary. Are we going to continue to go that same route? Thank you. Liberia was a model state. Don't let these people fool you. Liberia was a model state. No, that's not true. ADOS will be in a better position to be treated as first-class citizens in Liberia than here in America. I can tell you what, no matter what in America, especially on the West Coast, you're fifth or sixth class. Like I said, it's whites, Hispanics, Asians, dogs, cats, the ozone layer, and then if you're a black heterosexual male, you're at the bottom. It's like black LGBTQR alphabets. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. So again, what is the end game? Fake news. Do they have internet? Because ADOS love the data. Yeah, it says internet in Liberia. Of course, internet everywhere. But say there wasn't internet in Liberia. The amount we brag about building Kemet and building America, just bring the internet over there and build it. Let's build the internet in Liberia. That's all I'm saying. Hey, look, if anybody wants to call in, send me an email and you're more than welcome to call to jump on. Here's the email right here. Shoot me an email and you are more than welcome to jump on. More than welcome. Avoiding what question? Shoot me an email. And you are more than welcome to jump on. If ADOS wants to gain power in Liberia, and of course, I was thinking about it today. I had jury duty today. Unfortunately, I got out though. I didn't have to sit on any trials, or any cases. I got out. Thank God I got out. But I was just sitting there thinking, I'm like, Liberia was big, and it's very important with dealing with ADOS history. So why not focus on Liberia? Why not focus on Liberia? Again, how did Liberia come into existence? At the end of slavery, at the end of the Civil War, even before that, the United States of America did not have to move forward with the free slaves. So the plan was to send them to the Caribbean or give them create a free slave state in Africa, which you have Liberia. I like Haiti. I like Haiti too. You could do Senegal. I don't care what you do. It's just the current plan now, as far as continuing this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Central Park 678, Mike Brown, you know, all the black men are being locked up and targeted by the system. To continue that reality makes no sense to me. That's the only point I'm making. Let's see here. All right, user handle. I'm about to send you the link right now. I'm about to send you the link, user handle. And y'all don't be taking all day to hop on. Yes, you got to have Google Hangouts downloaded. User handle, check your email. User handle, check your email. Click the link, brother. Shout out to D-Till for the super chat. Shout out to Josh Sticks for the super chat. Alicia, this is the issue. Jalu's doing good. In fact, his birthday was last month. I need to send him a shirt. I got him a shirt for his birthday. And the plan was to give it to his cousin when I was in Benin to send to him, but we couldn't get up. So Eddie OS didn't fight anybody. Eddie OS didn't take anything. I don't understand. But who did ADOS fight to take Liberia? They didn't fight anybody. Now, when ADOS showed up to Liberia, they had to fend for themselves because the slave trade was still going on the coast. So imagine you're a free slave, you show up to Liberia, to set up shop, and then you see Africans being marched out to European ships to be shipped to the West. You defend yourself. User handle. We're waiting on you. Shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson in the house, everybody. Shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson. All right, see, this is the thing that kills me. I send you guys the link, and then you guys don't hop on. Are you guys trolling me? I send you guys the link, and then you don't hop on. Former slaves of America enslaved Native Africans. How do you? I don't understand your question. Again, that's what I don't understand. You guys ask for the link, and then you don't hop on. All right, let's see here. The U.S. government didn't give power to the Americas. If you want to hop on, send me an email, uhuru@searchforuhuru.com. If you want to hop on. Let's see here. I'm very aware with the history of, in fact, where's the book at? I don't have it. You know, the brother College Genesis, he actually wrote a book about the history of Liberia. Now, I'm not going to say that the Americas were perfect. Absolutely not. I'm not going to say that. But this whole negative rhetoric that the Americas came with this white man mindset and that they were enslaving the locals, that's a lie. Okay? The Americas did not participate in chattel slavery in Liberia. Again, they did not participate in chattel slavery. Were they perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But again, this idea that it just came in and he started castrating the natives and enslaving them and whooping them and all this other stuff, lies. Complete lies. Complete lies. You know, this idea that ADOS had the native Liberians on plantations and was just whipping them and castrating them and raping the women and having sex farms and breeding them, all lies. All lies. Do you guys have any more questions? If not, I'm gonna go ahead and log out. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you share. If you're new, please subscribe to the page. And again, why doesn't ADOS talk more about Liberia? Because of what we were able to create in Liberia and what we built in Liberia is important. It sets an example of what we're able to do. So everyone, thank you for joining. Again, make sure you go to Search for Who on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Like, share, subscribe. Till next time, family. Dynasty. Hold on, somebody just emailed me. Who's this? All right, Mark, I'm about to see you. Mark, I'm gonna send you the link. Like, don't take all day to click the link. Okay? The link is there, Mark. We're waiting on you. Mark Black. I just sent the link. So guys, we're gonna wait about a minute for Mark Black. If he doesn't come on, I'm gonna go ahead and log off. And I'm gonna do a couple more shows today because there's some other topics I wanted to talk about. Wanted to talk about the situation in Dominican Republic. And I also wanted to build more about this Central Park 5 documentary. Definitely want to talk more about that as well. Mark Black, I sent you the link. Mark Black, you got to click the link. You got about 30 more seconds and I'm gonna log off. No, Kala is coming on Thursday. Kala's gonna come on Thursday. Kala's gonna come out Thursday. Yeah, but everyone, thank you for joining.
Peace, brother. Peace. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, thank you, man, for having me. You know what? I actually want to say first of all, before we get started, man, I ain't gonna take. Can you hear me? I ain't gonna take too.
Go ahead. Hey, brother,
I'm gonna turn down.
Mark, you gotta turn off the sound in the background.
Echo and everything. But nah, brother, I just wanted to say that I've been following you for a while. I definitely love your work. You know, so yeah.
Appreciate it, bro. Thank you. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here, brother. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say, real quick that I love the balance that you kind of bring into the conversation, especially now. Oh, by the way, congratulations on your accession, man, to a royal house there, in Nigeria, man. I was very proud to see that. I watched your coronation. I thought that was dope. So, but at any rate, man, I won't take too long.
Take your time, bro. Take your time.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. What I will say is, believe it or not, there are proponent, ADOS advocate, and I have been for some time. But I also have mentioned in various broadcasts that if we see that our liberation struggle kind of as a two-pronged approach, right? In other words, this the first initial push, in my opinion, should be to gain recompense, acknowledgement, recompense, and closure of our justice claim here in America,
I agree,
right?
and I agree with that. I agree.
Right. And then subsequently, should we decide collectively or individually to make a push to either some diasporan African nation, or if we have a home place, in the motherland, for us to kind of repatriate or go there, I think that should be an option every ADOS person should consider, right? I'm not demanding that people love America, right? We've got 400 years of bad history here in this place, right? So with that in mind, it makes sense to consider other options. You know what I mean? To touch on kind of a little bit what you were talking about with Liberia, I think that Liberia is interesting. There is some history with the Liberians feeling as if we came back there and basically acted like black white folks, right? So you had, because a lot of the civil wars in Liberia were due to the fact of some of the native groups fighting the former freedmen from America, right, and jockeying for power there in Liberia. So I think Liberia is a possibility. I think it's interesting. I'm not certain how I'm keen on it. But what I wanted to ask you, Dynast, is I wanted to ask you, like, I know that you kind of set up in Nigeria and things like that. I just read an article or report where it was talking about Nigeria was not wanting to,
that's false. I actually did some research on that. That's not true. It's really up to each individual state. They want to welcome back the diaspora. So that's not true. I reached out to some people in Osun State, and basically they're saying the way it was presented by Ben Bruce is why it was rejected. So that was the issue.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And you know what? And first of all, I appreciate the clarity on that, because a lot of the problem is that especially for those of us here in America, a lot of the news sources that we get are, people have agendas. People, have they're not really trying to provide us with a lot of information, allowing us to make informed decisions. You know what I'm saying? So having people like yourself, brother, with boots on the ground, with actual connections within the country, makes things a heck of a lot easier when it comes down to trying to getting the information we need. I'll be honest, Dynast.
Go ahead.
I don't understand, me personally, right now. I understand in general. I'm not an idiot, but I don't understand, me personally, the animus that people who are ADOS proponents and advocates seem to be getting from other diasporans, when all we're stating is that each of us individually in our respective spheres have a claim against former colonial nations such as Britain, France, Germany, and so on and so forth, right? And that we want to see a unification, but charity starts at home, right? Like, it makes no sense for us as ADOS to be pushing for this unification with, say, Africa, for example, when Africa is still broken up into like 54 different nations. They don't have any customs agreements between nations. They're not. I see some evidence.
Well, I'll say this: there are, you have the free trade zone now, and then you have ECOWAS.
You do have ECOWAS, but you still have the CFA nations, right, that still use the franc. You have you have right now a lot of grief going on between say Nigeria and South Africa, right? I'm seeing South Africans attacking Nigerians who come into the country and things like that. I mean, I've seen some pushes, right? Like, for example, we know that Swahili is one of the largest spoken languages in Africa, so there's been a push to make Swahili sort of a universal language in Africa, right? So that you can have like a lingua franca that can be used no matter where you go in Africa. So I see some evidence that there is a push in that direction. I'm just not comfortable as of yet taking a people that still are struggling here where they are considered citizens, right, where they're supposed to have the fullest expression of citizenship, to be doing to be without the means that they need in order to make a push even here for their daily survival, let alone completely uproot themselves to a place where they're unfamiliar with the culture, they're unfamiliar with the languages, they're unfamiliar with the tribal systems and structures, and be expected to then make it from there too. You see what I'm saying?
I understand. I think we could walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, number one. And then number two, we have to understand immigrants come to America and do that and do this every day. They don't understand the culture. They don't. You go to California.
Right.
You got motherfuckers there that don't speak no English
Right.
and still get around and are treated better than the ADOS who built California.
But see, Dynas, you just hit it on the barrelhead. That's precisely the problem, right? In the United States, we as ADOS folk have been set up to be the permanent undercast, the permanent ones that eat the failure. Would you agree, right? No matter who comes here
and I agree. That's
right.
why I'm saying I understand some of the hurdles and some of the adversity you might face going to Africa, but just the way, especially I lived in LA for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Living in LA for 6 years opened up my eyes. Like it's just like, again, like I say, Black people in LA are literally like 6th and 7th class citizens.
Oh, most definitely.
So you have you being ADOS, right? And I'm not saying you have to renounce your American citizenship. I'm not saying you have to completely uproot yourself and go. But you going to any African country, I don't care what the situation is on the ground, you're going to be treated way more better than you will be in places like LA, New York. I mean, pretty much the whole West Coast. It's a wrap for Black people. You know.
So you know what, Dynas? I think okay. So what I think is interesting, and again, brother, I can't tell you. I know it seems like I'm jock riding, man, but I'm a huge fan of yours. I can't tell you what an honor it is to kind of talk to you virtually face to face, man. I've esteemed your work. I followed you for a lengthy period of time, and so forgive me if I'm kind of stumbling on my words. I'm a little hyped right now to be talking to a man. You know what I'm saying? But with that said, I think then if you and I are because I can see exactly where you're at, and I not only see where you're at, but I agree. I think rather than the rancor or the back and forth that we've kind of seen from some people who don't quite understand what like people will say ADOS are beggars, you know, they're kissing the ass of the white man, you know, talking about that we're making excuses. No, first of all, our people don't really understand the true reality in a lot of ways of what our situation is here. You see what I'm saying?
Brother,
Right?
I think, bro, that you have to, because I mean, you experience it every day. Like,
well, see, now here's the thing, though, right?
I'm brother, and I'm gonna
go
give you
ahead.
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead,
give you the
brother.
mic. I just gotta say this before I forget.
Yeah.
Only thing that's saving Black people right now in America is the credit system and access to corporate American jobs. You take those two things away, you might as well. It's especially the credit system, like my house, for example, that I'm in. I was able to get this house and put down 3.5% on the value of the home when I bought it. So the house at the time when I bought it was $185,000. I only had to put down like $5,000 or $6,000. You know, credit cards. You know, I have great credit. So literally, the first time I bought a car, right?
Yeah.
Using credit, my credit was terrible. I had to sit there and beg. I had to put a bunch of money down. My interest rate was high as hell. These last couple of times when I had to get a car, I literally just walked in, signed the paperwork. It took me longer to test drive the car than to actually do the paperwork and walk out with the car.
Yes.
So again, it's just you have the credit is an illusion. If something happens and they take away the credit system, they the argument I'm hearing with some members of ADOS is that, oh well, you know, I can't believe these corporate jobs or these positions in universities are going to non-ADOS African immigrants. I can't believe it. And at the end of the day, after a while, I'm like, okay, hold on. I understand where you're coming from, but who's cutting the check? Oh, this white or Jewish guy. So you're expecting this white or Jewish guy to, for some reason, feel sorry for you and place you over the African immigrant, then we complain about how we're being marginalized by the same system that has benefited the white person that controls, for the most part, corporate America and all the jobs. Like, it's not adding up to me.
Oh, now hold on a second, Dynas, because I definitely get where you're coming from. But see, I think what there is there's definitely a misunderstanding as far as like the proponents and the advocates of ADOS goes. We have done the research, right? What we're trying to do at this particular point is political education, right? Because as you said, there should be common knowledge, right? There should be no ADOS person in this country without complete clarity as to what we faced, how we faced it, what we're facing, so on and so forth. But Dynas, you would be surprised at the level. I don't want to use a pejorative term like ignorance, but there is some clear gap between what we perceive of. As a matter of fact, Dynas, I'm gonna recommend a book to you. It's written by a sister named Dr. Leslie Branch called Optimism by Any Means, right? And she talked about what she called in her work, because she uses critical race theory, right, to analyze the situation politically and economically of ADOS in America. She called what we express many times a paradoxical ebullience, right? In other words, we have this misplaced optimism that is belied by the data, right? So part of what ADOS proponents and advocates have to do, Dynas, is we have to combat that paradoxical ebullience. We have to get past what people think America is for ADOS folk and tell the truth about what America actually is for ADOS folk. But what that looks like to people like yourself, right? People who are educated about the history of ADOS people in America, right? The history of how we had to operate in this space. It looks like that we are complaining. But in point of fact, we're not. What we're trying to do is educate people to let them know the actual reality of our circumstances. You were talking about the credit system, right?
Right.
I read a report that stated that even if America changes nothing, right, about how it operates economically toward ADOS, the median Black family's net worth will be zero by the year 2053. This means if they do nothing worse, if they change nothing about how we do things here or how we operate economically, by 2053, in the richest nation on the planet, we will be without wealth. That's an effective collective death sentence, right?
Right.
But when you ask people, just your general average everyday ADOS brother and sister, if they know about that, a lot of them don't. So I know, brother, it may seem as if when you're hearing our broadcast and things like that, that we're complaining about or but what we're doing is we're trying to educate and highlight for those people who are still possessed under this idea, this paradoxical ebullience, this optimism that belies the data. Does that make sense, brother?
No, it makes sense. I'm not necessarily saying that ADOS is complaining, because again, we have a legitimate claim when it comes to the unpaid wages for the amount of slave labor that our ancestors put into this country, building this country. I completely agree with that. It's just, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what is the end game? Like somebody in the chat, let me read this statement. Someone in the chat room said, let's see here. She said, it's okay for Africans to make it in America and we can't make it here, but only in Africa. This brother is gone. I'm not saying that. My thing is, when is ADOS going to realize that the system was never meant for you as a whole to make it here in America? Like, I don't like, why are we, like, we're avoiding that elephant in the room.
I don't think necessarily, Dynas, that we're avoiding it. I think what it is, however, is, as you stated before, we have this underlying problem, right? We are making a justice claim here in this country, right? Under this particular structure, this system, the Constitution, and all of the stuff that that obtains, right? So, to a great extent, we have to identify as a unique and specific class here in this country, right? As Americans. But as you stated clearly, and as most of us ADOS folk know, right? there is going to be this, for lack of a better way to say it, unbreakable tie with our essential Africanness, right? So even though we're having to make this push for our justice claim in this country, under this milieu, as citizens of this particular nation, there will always be that inherent foreignness that we can't escape due to the way that the structure is set up, right?
Right.
So we're both right. You're right in saying that ultimately, whatever the end game ultimately will be with this push for our justice claim, it will have to answer the essential question of, okay, let's say tomorrow ADOS gets their due. Now what?
Exactly.
Right. So you're absolutely spot on with that critique that perhaps there should be more of us proponents and advocates who are exploring what happens after. Do we make a push to start tying with other nations, whether diasporan African nations or African nations on the continent, for a space or a place, a transfer of resources, intellectual property, and so, and really start to build a foothold there? Or do we stay here? I think you're right. Part of the thing, in my opinion, Dinus, and
Mhm.
I actually come from this from a kind of a similar perspective as you, because previously I held very strongly to Pan-Africanism, right? And
Mhm.
to a certain extent, I still do. What my problem currently with Pan-Africanism is only this.
Go ahead.
It is that it does not allow for a space for us to clearly differentiate ourselves to the point of wholeness for ourselves, right? In other words, I think that Pan-Africanism currently serves ADOS. It doesn't serve us in good stead, because we have an essential issue that we need to overcome here, which is that unification around our lineage and our heritage. We have never actually made that push in a way that didn't include a whole bunch of other groups, right? In other words, Dinus, like, you have a house. If
Right.
if your house is on fire, your house is
Right.
on fire,
Right.
right? And your neighbor's house is on fire. As much as you love your neighbor, right? As much as you get along with them, y'all like brothers. You eat at each other's barbecues, whatever. You got to make sure to put out the fire in your house, right, before you go and deal with your neighbor house.
Right.
ADOS is basically that attempt by Americans of African descent, right, who were brought here during the transatlantic slave trade,
Right.
to organize and identify as our own distinct group. And I think that without that, we lose our way by being subsumed into a larger kind of black edifice that doesn't even really know how to deal with this in the first place, right? Because if you think about it, Dynast, one thing that I find interesting about Pan-Africanism is
Mhm.
that everybody assumes, for example, right, that ADOS culture, folkways, mores is just up for grabs. Like, nobody sees a problem anywhere, whether they're continental, diasporan, or whatever the case may be, with taking ADOS culture and doing whatever they want to with
Let
it.
me say that. I'm gonna tell you why. Because ADOS does not control the distribution of its culture. And with that being said, ADOS culture is changing damn near every 2 years. What's defined as ADOS culture, because we don't
Mhm.
control the distribution of it. And that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why
Mhm.
I'm saying the end game needs to be get your check, either form a nation of your own, or you go back and integrate into an African country.
You know what, Dynast, I couldn't agree with you more. As a matter of fact, I can see.
And then, like I said, one last
Oh,
thing.
go
And then
ahead,
the
brother.
problem I have with ADOS, especially Yvette Carnell, is when it comes to, okay, let's do for self. Let's create our own distribution. Let's create our own opportunities. Here she comes with the misery merchant. Black folks ain't got no money. We ain't got no money. And it's just like, I mean, it's just, so you still want to rely on the system that you're complaining about to do everything for you, but you just want to check.
So about that, right? Because I actually find myself in a place of agreement with you for the most part when it comes to doing whatever we can for self, right? This has just been our way as ADOS people, right? What I think that, and I'm not certain if it's just simply her delivery or people's perception of her delivery, because I actually respect her
I
a
do.
great
She
deal,
makes
right?
some great points.
Right.
She's very.
She's
I respect her, but it's just
yeah,
like.
I respect her. I don't agree with her on everything or tone, right? So I want to make that clear right out the gate. When I advocate for my people, I advocate based off of my experience, my knowledge, what I know, and I will take the best of what I can from other advocates and utilize it, and I leave the rest behind, right? So I'm not going to say I completely agree with anyone, right? I think all of us are bringing some really good stuff to the table, but where Yvette is telling a hard truth that is difficult for many of us to accept is that this idea of, for lack of a better way to say it, black capitalism, right, has been demonstrably proven false. And the only reason why we can say that with a certainty is because in order to play the capitalism game, Dynast, we would have to have at least two things, right? Number one, we would have to have some sort of capital base, right? In other words, we'd have to have something that we can use as a foundation to accumulate further capital, right? You would agree?
I agree, but the
Okay.
thing is, the only way you're going to get that is by forming a nation of your own. Because we had that in Liberia.
No,
Before the coup.
brother, we'll get there, right? I'm just
Okay, go ahead.
asking you.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay, go
no,
ahead.
no,
Go
you're good.
ahead.
I'm asking you to follow my logic chain.
Right. No, I got you.
Okay, right. So we would need a capital base, right? That's number one. Number two, we would need an environment that fosters that accumulation of capital safely and allows for intergenerational transfer. Would you agree?
I agree, absolutely.
Okay, right. Neither of which we truly have ever had here within the confines of the United States, right? Now we can argue, I think it's a valid argument if we say then that should we get our seed capital from a different source that is not antithetical or has antipathy to our interests as a whole, right? I think that's a valid argument, right? Because I think part of the disdain that we experience as ADOS proponents and advocates is that idea. Well, how is it you're expecting a country that has never meant for you to have anything to give you anything, right? So that antipathy from people who argue that point, that they're saying basically we should be looking to acquire what we need from resources that are not antithetical to our very existence as what we want to be or as we need to be. And I would agree to a certain extent with that, right? But here's the thing to note. We have no clarity, truly, right, as a people, who is antithetical to our interests and who is not. Let me explain. For those of us who believe that we might have the opportunity to, in a sense, repatriate or go home to the motherland, right, to the continent, there are basic questions that come to mind that when they're asked, we don't usually tend to get a lot of clarity on, or the situations tend to be very specific, right? For example, we were talking, I had a discussion on my channel about the year of return, right? You know, Sheila Jackson Lee went and with the president of Ghana, and they announced the 2019 year of return, and so on and so forth, right? Now, I, being the person that I am, I'm not, I don't have any antipathy personally toward Ghana, right? I recognize the history, but I have nothing against Ghana or Ghanaians, right? So when this was brought to me, I came up with some very basic questions that I would like to have answers for, that I think that any ADOS person that uses, you know, reason and discernment would want answers to. For example, what is our actual status if we took advantage of the year return? Like, would we be considered naturalized? Would we be considered permanent residents? Right? Like,
your status is basically economic. You're just boosting the economy.
Right. Now, Dynast, I'll be honest. That's what I figured.
Oh, I already knew that.
But
I'm just over that. I already knew that.
I wanted clarity, like official clarity on that, right? Because you know the law surrounding the right of return, right, it was passed by the Ghanaian government back in 2011. Like this has been on the books for quite some time, right? But with no clear mechanism for any one of us in the diaspora to take advantage of it. So we can't really know for certainty unless we get clarity from some of these African nations or the different states, like say in Nigeria, with
Right.
around the different chieftaincies and so on and so forth. What are whether or not they're actually antithetical to our interests or not, right? So basically, I agree that we have to look at every option and not just where we are here in America. But the problem for ADOS comes in is we are clear that America has historically and currently remains antithetical to our interests. But we have no clarity as to who is not anywhere else. So that puts us kind of in a catch-22, right? Better the devil you know kind of than the devil you don't. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, that's at least that's where I'm at, right? You know, I would like to see more clarity around what ADOS, or not just ADOS, but diasporans in general,
Right.
right? What our options truly are on the continent in some official capacity, right? If they're just saying that we're just there to boost the economy or whatever,
Yeah,
okay,
for the most
fine.
part, yeah.
Yeah, we could decide whether or not we want to do that and make a choice, right? If they say that we can gain some degree of naturalization or a land base, you know, things that would allow us to start to accumulate a capital base and things like that, right? Well, then, yeah, now we can start having some discussion. But I think it's a bit unfair to ask ADOS to basically not try and push for whatever we're able to push for here, in spite of the clear antipathy to ADOS, but not but go someplace where we are not certain at all what these people's alliance are to our interests, right? Because like our brother, you know, an esteemed elder, John Henry Clark said, we have no permanent friends or alliances. We only have permanent interests, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that thing. And I just wanted to get your 2 cents on it.
Yeah, no problem, brother. But yeah, I mean the whole Ghanaian thing, I think, and somebody said in the chat room that the year of return is an ongoing process. So I'll be fair. They did grant 200 African Americans who are currently living in Ghana citizenship, which is great. It's just me personally, just you know, when you're brought up in Pan Africanism, you're just taught Ghana is the center of Pan Africanism. Then you get there, and it's just like, you know, I'll put Ghana maybe fifth on a list. You know, if I honestly, for Black Americans for ADOS, I would go Sierra Leone, Senegal, Nigeria, Kenya, Togo, Benin Republic. I would go. I would choose those countries over Ghana.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with you. I mean, just look at what Benin has done. Benin, you know, you had chieftains who made public apologies to the diaspora, you know, to the diaspora as a whole for their role in what happened during the transatlantic. We haven't even had this nation apologize for the role it played, right? You know, so you have clearly some African nations that are, I think, at the beginning of making feelers, or you know, putting out things that can start to clarify in jail just what our status might be, at least with them, right? You know, with those particular nations or those particular states within those nations and so on and so forth. I would just like to see more of that. That is all. I don't have any antipathy or animus against ADOS seeking opportunities on the continent, in the motherland. I do believe ultimately, over time, whatever our ultimate destiny is going to be, it is going to be tied with Africa in some way, shape, or fashion. I can
And
tell
that's the
you that
point
for a
I'm
certain.
trying to make. When cats think, you know, the future, you're gonna move forward without Africa. I'm like, no, You're not. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, I'm not saying you have to renounce your American citizenship and, jump in both feet on the continent. I'm not saying that, but you have to have an African plan. And then the stalling tactics I hear, coming from ADOS as far as why not, it's just like, it doesn't make sense when you look at your history here in America. It doesn't make any sense.
Dynas, I wanted to address a comment I saw in the chat. Somebody said that that I'm a typical example of African American selfishness, right? And I wanted to address that because first of all, I will be the first one to tell you that I remain a lover of Blackness all over the globe. That has never wavered. That will never waver for me, right? I have no desire whatsoever to see Black folk of any stripe, whether from the continent, diaspora, you name it, suffer anything, face anything negative. I am rooting for Blackness on this globe. With that said, however, how is it that it is so easy to accuse me, a proponent of my own group, my own tribal group, of being selfish when it has been clearly established that every group that comes to America gets its start in my community? We open our arms to everyone. We don't disdain anyone's business operations. We don't disdain anyone's religious groups, like Muslims live in our communities, Jews live in our communities, right. Hindus live in our communities, right? So now that I'm speaking up and saying, hey, everybody's had their time at the trough, right? It is time for me and my people to stop eating the failure and stop being the outcast. Now I'm being, and I'm not taking it personal, right? But now we're being called selfish, when in point of fact, I think that ADOS people have been the most generous of any people in the diaspora, right? When you look at other countries in the diaspora, like right now, I read an article where Barbadians were forbidding Haitians from entering the country and so on and so forth, right? Like, everybody's so quick to point this negative finger of y'all are being insular and nativist and closing yourselves off and this, that, and the third, when ADOS have never done that. In point of fact, we have always been the most open to everybody, allowing everybody to come in. But what we're saying now at this point is that if you're coming in and your whole mentality is simply mercenary, right? You have no necessary alliance with us, then why should we necessarily be open to you, right? In other words, ADOS is saying at this point, we're going to do unto others as they've been doing unto us. Right, creating insular communities where we don't get a chance to be a part of it, where they call us, different names in their languages and stuff like that. Right, ADOS is simply drawing our borders and saying, look, we are a distinct people. We need to be counted separate from everybody else, so we can get clear and factual information about our true status here, what it is that we need specifically, and so on and so forth. Right, so the idea that for some reason I'm being selfish in my advocacy for my particular group, my particular tribe, I think is just foolish.
And I agree. And my issue with immigrants is that, honestly, I follow the Tuskegee model, which was created by Booker T. Washington. Mm-hmm. Booker T. Washington said, basically, at the end of slavery, he wanted Black people to be self-sufficient, where they would not have to depend on racist whites for anything. Mm-hmm. So when he started the Tuskegee Institute, Tuskegee University, basically everything on that campus, from underwear to furniture to housing, I mean, everything was created by Black hands. We did for self on that campus. Mm-hmm. All right, that is the original, as Louis Farrakhan will call it, Muhammad blueprint plan or whatever for self-sufficiency. So what Booker T. Washington wanted to do, he wanted to take that and bring it to Africa. So he started to began to enroll African immigrants into Tuskegee University under the condition that whatever they learned, that they would go back to Africa and implement it instead of getting comfortable in America and staying. I think we've gotten away from that.
Facts. Absolutely. I would agree 100%. It's a little difficult to ask me to invest in Africa, right? When the cream of the African crop, and this is not all of them, of course, I shouldn't have to say not all, right? But when the cream of the African crop comes here, and the first thing that they want to do is take advantage of all the hard work and fighting and efforts that we've done here in the United States, and then claim they did it all themselves, right? Like when you look at things like, for example, affirmative action, right?
Right.
It's funny how I used to, I'm not going to assume malice here, but I think it's interesting that you have, you know, specifically Black immigrants, because this is really more apropos to Black immigrants than anyone else. But you have Black immigrants who come here and they essentially have this non-written or non-spoken agreement with America that they will be Black light, right? What I call America's devil's food cake dynasty. What
Mhm.
that means is that they're all of the Blackness, right? So for the cases of like diversity and so on and so forth, they're counted as Black. So they're all of the Blackness, but without any of the history, without any of the justice
See,
claim.
but
You
this is
see
the
what I'm
thing, brother,
saying?
and I'm gonna give it back to you.
Go ahead, brother.
You need to blame our civil rights leaders for doing that.
Oh, dude, trust me. ADOS has plenty of smoke for those people who have essentially gone in there. I mean, these butter biscuit seeking, white validation seeking, pat on the head bootlicks
Uh-huh.
have done us a great disservice. And I think personally, as ADOS, one of our first things that we need to do is clean house. We need to go into our communities and get people like Clyburn out, who's carrying water and hewing wood for people like Biden, who who was the creator of the crime bill that instituted mass incarceration in our communities. Like we always have, we have a lot of work to do to clean house. There's no doubt,
Right.
right? But at the same token, we I cannot state enough. I don't think it's fair to ask ADOS folk to do things for other Black groups that those other Black groups just seem to be unwilling collectively to do for us, right? That's as simple as that. At some point, we have to find a way to make our own path, to do our own thing here, with starting in the United States, but then elsewhere, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So, yeah. And
I just think the whole make our own path here in America. I just how did, okay, here we go. Here we go. Here's my question. Making our own path. We get reparations, right?
mhm.
How do you make your own path here in America? Like that's where I need clarity on.
Well, you have two groups of thought in this particular matter, as far as I'm able to see, Dynasty. And far be it for me to speak for every ADOS proponent or advocate, right? I can only tell you what I see. So there seems to be two schools of thought in this particular matter, right? One school of thought, which I actually understand, it's just to me normal. It
Well,
makes sense.
one second, brother.
Go
Guys,
ahead, brother.
we have 245 people watching, only 108 likes. Guys, please hit that like button. All right, that's the least you can do is hit that like button. Please hit the like button. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. As a matter of fact, thank you for the reminder. I had to hit it myself.
Uh-huh.
But so we have two schools of thought. One of which is that ADOS, once we've received acknowledgement, recompense, and closure, simply just live as Americans, right? That we remain here, that we live like normal American folk, right?
That will
Yes.
never happen. What's a no, no, not. I mean, you will always be considered third and fourth, and yeah, that's just. But keep going, keep going. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
no. I was explaining what the schools
Yeah,
of
go ahead.
thought are. So there's that one school of thought, right? That we simply are fighting for the fullest expression of our citizenship, along with the return of the stolen capital that was taken from us, right? But then you have ADOS proponents who believe that once we receive our due, we should look to expand or go elsewhere, especially considering the historical antipathy that Americans in general have displayed toward ADOS, right? So, oh, somebody said, why is the speaker hiding? I'm not hiding. Give me just a second here. I'll show you all who I am. Yeah, let me set my camera up here, and y'all should be able to see me here shortly. There you go. Peace, brothers and sisters. By the way, love you all. So yeah, but with that said, I think that us currently discussing what to do after the do is taken care of, or whatever the case may be, is kind of putting the cart before the horse, Dynast, right? Because I know, and
I disagree with you on that, but keep going.
no,
Keep
go
going.
ahead, brother. We can, right?
I disagree because, you know, what we started to learn, what we've learned is that everyone except for Black people have damn near a 200-year plan. So you're not putting the cart before the horse by speaking on, okay, you get reparations. What's the end game?
You know what? I don't think that that's correct. First of all, Dynast, most of what has happened hasn't necessarily gone towards multi-generational game plans, right? If you allow me to explain, right? When I look at the structure or the economy, right, of the United States of America, right, what I see is a seed planted in blood, dispossession, and tyranny, right? Enslavement and jacking of the land and so on and so forth, right? And what that allowed for was the creation of a snowball, if you will, right, at the top of a mountain. When you have that snowball, it's a small thing. But as you start to roll it down the hill and it gains impetus and more mass, there comes a point where people don't even have to plan anything and things will still take their course without any intervention, right? Without any change in the pattern or the path of the snowball. Like, I think on one hand, we don't give enough credit to um to our people for seeing patterns across history. And I think we give sometimes our historic and current oppressors too much credit for being more clever, more savvy than they actually really are. I mean, at this particular point, Dynast, we're not even in a point of capital growth for the West anymore. When you look at the West now, what you see is not capital growth. You see calcification of the snowball that, in other words, you're seeing an emplacement, right, of the snowball that already occurred, right? This is why you're seeing stuff like these nativist movements in places like Holland and France and the UK with Brexit and all this other stuff, right?
The yellow vest in France.
What they realize is that there's nowhere else to go. There is nothing else left to steal, to grow from, right? So what they're trying to do now at this point is hold on to what they've already taken. You see what I'm saying? So for us to ascribe these long-term plans and goals to them, I think goes a little too far, right? Yeah, I think this goes just a bit too far. What I do think, however, though, Dynast, is that I think it's a legitimate question to ask, where are we going to direct our efforts post this justice claim, right?
Yeah.
I do think that is a legitimate question to ask. The only concern that I have is that those details, by their very nature, will become nebulous because in order for us to make projections, we would have to assume some things that we can't really assume as of yet, right? That we really can't assume with the current information and data that we have available. So I wasn't saying that you're necessarily wrong. I just think that it's a bit premature for us to make this say, okay, we got the bread, now what, right? I think we still need to focus on first the education, the unification, the recognition of our distinct, heritage, lineage, so on and so forth, and then doing the work to go after what is our due. If that makes any sense, bro. And then I believe that we can have some solid, decent conversations at that point, because we will not be speaking from a point of diminished capacity or weakness, as some people like to say.
Shout out to Gregory Wyatt, brother Gregory in the chat room. Afro Being, thank you for the super chat. Immigrants follow power and Africans are no different when they get here. Does that make them a target? Absolutely. Now, now, as far as ADOS, are we a powerless people in America that's demanding respect?
Damn, Dynas, you hit me with a good one.
I mean, because that's the thing. Like, it's like we want people to do this. We want people to respect us. We want people to do this. Oh, this is what we did for y'all. But at the end of the day, who cuts the check?
So I would have to say that anybody, and this is my opinion, anybody who's ADOS who is thinking that this struggle is in some way about being accepted by America or being liked by America are sadly mistaken, right?
Brother, I disagree. I mean, Yvette Carnell, I don't know.
I will say that if now I will admit I have never heard her claim that she desires
Oh man,
acceptance,
she definitely
right?
wants to be accepted and have a
Okay.
seat at the table.
Dynast, I will grant it for the sake of our discussion. I've never heard it, but if she's on that, I don't agree, right? Because here's the thing, I I believe that at a certain point, right, it really won't matter. I don't believe actually at all. It does matter whether or not Americans like us or accept us or whatever the case may be. I think that if people are fighting for that, who cares, right? They've made it clear that in the main, America has, if at best, neutrality and at worst, antipathy towards us. So to expect that that's going to turn around, regardless of whether or not we are able to successfully pursue this justice claim, I think is idiotic. Right. I don't think it's going to be about acceptance or about like. What I believe it's going to be about is the acquisition of our due, right? And the defense of ourselves, whether by either building up infrastructure here in America or by going elsewhere, the defense of ourselves once we have the return of our due, right? I think those are the two things that are basically the main focus, in my opinion.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here in the chat room. Hey, hold up. Oh, you know, in fact, here we go. Let me thank you, hold up. Let me hold up. I sent you the link as well, hold up, if you want to hop on. But let's go to the 80. Have you been to the ADOS website?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, well, it should be right there. Let's see here. About ADOS.
I'll go there with you, ados101.com.
Okay.
And then we're on the Black Agenda page.
Okay, you want to start there? Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Black Agenda. As a specific with a specific justice claim, the ADOS movement demands a specific agenda with policy prescriptions that address the losses stemming from the institution of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. I agree. So we demand a new deal for Black America, which includes but not limited to. We need set-asides for American descendants of slavery, not minorities. A throwaway category, which includes all groups except white men. But actually, that's not true. I think if you're a white homosexual man, you're considered a minority.
Facts.
That categorization has allowed Democrats to use programs like affirmative action as giveaways, true, to all groups in exchange for votes. The bribery must end. That begins with a new designation on the census with ADOS and another for Black immigrants. Black immigrants should be barred from. Okay, so this is my problem right here. Let's stop right there. This is the problem. In fact, let me finish first before I assume something. Black immigrants should be barred from assessing affirmative action and other set-asides intended for ADOS, as should Asians, Latinos, white women, and other minority groups. Okay, they answered my question right there. In addition, ADOS hiring and employment data must be demanded for all business receiving tax credits, incentives, and governmental support, as well as governmental agencies, national, state, and local. It is our belief that this will show that there are minimal, if any, ADOS professionals in fields including but not limited to engineering, medical, legal, and tech. All right, so again, I understand where this is coming from, and I somewhat agree. But at the end of the day, this has... My thing is, I would be jockeying for power. Instead, you're jockeying for a better position in, I would say, non-ADOS owned corporations. That's what I get from this.
Oh, Dynast. Okay, you know what? I feel you. And I would have to say that I think that's a valid critique, right? That I believe that at the end of the day, in order for us to get our justice claim, right, to get our due, we are going to have to involve ourselves heavily in the power structure here in the
Right.
United States, right? Now, some of us think that that should be primarily economic. Some of us think that should be primarily political, right? We can have that discussion. But yes, I do believe that the acquisition of some degree of power at some point is going to have to occur for us to even come close to having this
Right.
justice claim honored.
All right, let's see here. Let me read the rest. Once affirmative action is streamlined as a government program only and specifically for ADOS, the program should be fully reinstituted. Again, I agree, but like, do you want power or do you want just a better position at the dinner table?
Now, Dinus, one of the things that I think is fairly clear, right? At least in my opinion.
Yeah, my thing
That
is like, do you want to basically at the end of the day,
Mhm.
does ADOS want to control their own destiny?
Absolutely. At
But
least,
do you get
yeah.
that from this agenda?
What I get from this agenda is that this agenda
Oh, shout
is,
out to Holub's on.
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead,
Peace,
brother.
brother Hollip. Welcome,
Peace.
welcome, man.
Peace. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Thank you, brother Hollip. It's an honor to be on the same platform with you too as well. We've actually been on platforms together before, though, and it's always a pleasure to hear you speak, brother. So welcome to you.
Thank you, bro.
Yes, sir. Dinus, what I see this agenda being here is something that builds up to power in steps. Now, I got to admit a personal bias, if I may, right? I do have a personal bias about incrementalism, right? And it's simply just because for me, I've never seen a situation where incrementalism has ever worked for a people. They're either deflected, corrupted, discredited long before they actually get to certain points. So I think that ADOS could push for a lot more than what it is, at least under the auspices of what Yvette and Tone is trying to do. I think that they're being a little too, for lack of a better way to say it, a little too soft pedal on some things, in my opinion, right? I think certain things should just be a given and should be stated boldly and clearly, not, trying to dance around it, so to speak. Right. So I do get a sense in some of this Black agenda, this bit of incrementalism. But with that being said, I do think that it does not necessarily mean that this agenda cannot be workable, in that as we make these maneuvers, these changes within the structures of the current system that operates here in America, that a certain degree of economic and political power would adhere and allow us to be able to increase greatly our ability to either build structures here or to have the means and the resources to go elsewhere.
Oh, you want to add something, brother? Holupism.
Peace, everybody. Yeah, first I want to just say I appreciate the manner and spirit of the brother on the call, because a lot of times we can't really have a honest conversation because people are coming in with so much hyperbole and agendas. It's just nice to
Right.
actually be able to have a discussion. So I appreciate that. And I just want to say, just to preface, if you feel that I'm asking something that's like that I'm straw manning you,
Mhm.
or or do you feel uncomfortable with the question, just let me know.
Oh, of course, brother. No, like I said, I've been on platforms with you before. You're very fair, and trust me, I'm familiar with rhetoric and debate. I know how to defend myself if need be. So please.
Well, I'm not trying to attack you. That's
No, no,
not what I
I'm
want.
not taking it personal. We are definitely
Yeah.
having a great discussion. So please have at it, brother.
Okay. My main thing is this is how I feel just overall about the problems that we have organizing on any level.
Mm.
If I'm playing in the NFL, my goal, my end game is the Super Bowl. Everybody
Agreed.
knows it. It's clear. It's concise. There's no ambiguity. Everybody knows that we're in this game to win the Super Bowl. So my question is, for 80, and see, I feel unfair even ask you this because I don't think that are you a part of the ADOS movement under Yvette and Tone? Or
I
you
would
just agree with the concept?
I will say this. I agree with the idea of aligning with our lineage and our heritage. Some of the things that they put forward, I can ride with. Some of it, I don't. I hold myself out as an advocate for our people, for whatever I can perceive as our best interest to be. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I follow or I'm an adherent to a particular group with Yvette and Tone. I respect them both. I respect their work. But I have many people that I respect.
Okay.
That does not mean that I agree with everything that they say. I tend to hold myself out as a lover of the truth, no matter where
All
it
right.
comes from.
I
So,
got you. I got you. That's fair because I didn't want to make an unfair question to you and have you try to represent them. So I'll ask you the question.
okay.
Um, what should be our end game as? Are you comfortable with the term African Americans? I mean, for lack of a better word. All right,
Hey, no,
for
no, it's fine
Africans,
by it's fine by me. African
I'll
Americans,
just say for ADOS
ADOS,
here.
whatever. Yeah,
What is
absolutely.
the end game?
In my humble opinion, I believe the end game should be a combination of two things. One, it should be a combination of us building as much infrastructure here as possible to protect whatever interests and peoples that we have that are not going to go elsewhere, right? Because let's face facts, even if ADOS became a nation essentially within a nation, right? Which some of us argue that we already are kind of de facto, right? And that's a great discussion to have. But without the means and the capability of growth and protection, regardless of whatever status you hold yourself out as, it doesn't matter, right? So if the majority of us may remain here, which is likely, right? I believe that we need to develop infrastructures, systems, and protections here that are baked into the system to ensure the continued growth and sustenance of ADOS folk here in America. But like Brother Dynast, I do not disdain the idea of making branches outward, whether to other diaspora and African nations or to continental African nations, and seeing what alliances and agreements we can make with them for our collective benefit.
Okay, so then my question is, all right, so I just want to re-emphasize. So I don't want to characterize what you're saying. So you're
Mhm.
saying that the end game for ADOS in America is to establish a nation within a nation in America?
I'm saying that I believe the end game in for ADOS folk in America is to be able to have the means of maintenance and sustenance and defense for themselves. Yes, and some people would call that nationhood. I would not disagree with that term.
Okay, so if you have nation within a nation in America, because nationhood to me means where you control the land, you
Mhm.
control the infrastructure. Are you saying that that's what I'm just trying to get an idea? Are you saying that that's the goal, the ultimate end game and the goal is to have land and infrastructure, control the infrastructure here in America? Like, is that where the base of operations is going to be?
I believe that the vast majority of ADOS are going to remain here. And so, yes, I do believe that we need a land base and a space to be able to have autonomy and control, and to be able to defend our people, sustain our people, protect our people. When I look at our history and I see places like, Durham, North Carolina, Tulsa, I've been to Greenwood, right? And so on and so forth. Part of the problem was not that we had an issue with necessarily acquiring or developing a capital base, but we had no capability to defend it, right? So whatever ultimately occurs, I believe the end game is going to require the capability of not just growth, but defense of our people here in America, and looking to establish points of contact and areas of growth elsewhere.
Okay, tell me if you can understand where I'm going with this,
Mhm.
because what about other ethnic groups that are existing right now here in America who have strong communities, but they don't really necessarily control any land. They don't really control the power grids. They don't control the infrastructure, but they're doing much better than we are.
Hmm.
What's the reason for that?
I believe that that's twofold. The first thing is that many of these people come from established places, established nations. Let's face facts. I often use the
Wait, hold
I'm
on.
sorry, go ahead, brother.
Let me
Go
stop
ahead.
you right there.
Go ahead.
Say that again.
These people come from places that are already established nations.
Okay. Now that you said that, this is
Hmm.
my philosophy.
Hmm.
Everything that we want here in America can be achieved. The only problem is I think that people are looking at the process wrong. You have to have your base of operations outside of America. Just like all these other countries, all these other communities, I should say, of other ethnic groups, they have nation states outside of America.
Hmm.
China is a perfect example. The Chinese here in America are getting direct trade from China. That's why if you go on eBay, you'll see the Chinese are dominating in products and stuff because they can get their products directly from their nation state.
I would agree.
So why don't we develop the nation state first? And then wherever we are, like I'll just use America because that's what we're talking
Hmm.
about. America would become our satellite nation.
So, Brother Hollipsism, let me ask you a question, if I may, because
Sure.
that's a great question. The obvious question that comes up to me is where, right? Now, the reason why it seems like that I'm not. I don't want you to think that I'm being like dumb,
No,
right,
no,
or
no, no,
talking to
no.
you, right?
I
But
got you.
but the issue comes down to this: where is it that it has been clearly established, right, that ADOS or you know what, forget ADOS for now, right? Because this is kind of a broader discussion that I think is applicable to every diasporan group, right? So let's talk about every diasporan group, right? To show you how not selfish I am, family, right? So where has it been clearly established that diasporan Africans have any land base anywhere that they could return to? Because I would be the first to agree with you, Brother Hollipsism, that if we are going to develop a nation, the first thing we need is a land base,
Hmm.
right? We have to have a base of operations.
Right.
The problem is that where can we even, like, where is it that we have clarity that we can do that? Because someone mentioned in the chat, and I think it was absolutely sensible to state this. They made it clear in the chat that regardless, okay, wherever we go as ADOS, if we're wanting a place in the sun, if we're wanting to have a place to stand, right, a land base, we're going to have to fight somebody for it, right?
Really?
Because yeah, I truly believe that,
I
right?
don't at all.
You know, but history is not on your side. If you look at every attempt that ADOS, because now I have to take it back to ADOS because the diaspora conversation is a little I can't make that one clear because a lot of diaspora people actually come from their own nations, right? Like Jamaica has a land base, whether you consider it a great land base or not, they have one, right? Haiti has a land base, and so on and so forth, right? ADOS people are the only ones who don't have a clear established land base, right?
I
So
agree.
so this conversation more applies to us. Every attempt that we've seen throughout history, right? Whether you're talking about the American Colonization Society, right? The efforts that Paul Cuffey made, that Martin Delaney supported, and so on and so forth, right? Everywhere that we have gone, right, outside the confines of the United States, we have either ended up in some sort of conflict with the people that were already there, which makes sense to a certain degree, right? Or we have been dissipated, right? We simply just didn't have the numbers to be able to sustain whatever land base that we were able to be given or acquire or whatever the case may be, right?
Hmm.
So again, I ask you, I agree with you that for nationhood, we would require a land base. But where is it been clearly established that we can go where we won't have to basically engage in bloodshed, right, in order to take our place in the sun? I mean, one could argue that we actually have a better shot here in America to not necessarily have to engage in bloodshed in order to acquire a land base, right? Now, I'm not willing to have that discussion for the sake of time now, but what I am saying is that I agree with you. Land base. We need land, and from there build infrastructure and the nationhood. Great. Where's the land base?
Okay.
We would be treated essentially as colonizers wherever we went.
I don't agree with that. And the reason why I don't agree with that is because I believe that the relationship between African Americans and Africans on the continent can be mutually beneficial. Everybody seems to think that we're going to Africa with a hat in our hand and we have nothing to offer. Like, please, sir, give me some land. I'm not going to give you anything, but I deserve it. I don't have that opinion. We have a lot to offer.
I agree with you,
And,
brother.
and they also have.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't give that impression. I agree.
Oh, no.
Go ahead, brother. I'll cut you off, please.
They also have a reason to have our talents and stuff over on the continent. Now, my issue is this, and this is more of a philosophical thing. How come we can point to the failed attempts at nationhood on the continent and then say we shouldn't do it, but then look at the failed attempts at having a community in America and then say we should do it? Because for every Liberia, I can point to Black Wall Street.
1,000 Black Wall Streets.
1,000 Black Wall Streets.
Right.
Where you tried to do something in America and it got burned down. Now, does that mean that I'm against
Central Park Fives and Mike Browns and
right? Does that mean that now just because I say that does not mean that I don't think that we can't have an organized, thriving satellite community in America? I don't want to give the impression that just because Black Wall Street happened and I'm throwing up my hands. But this is why I'm pointing to this philosophically. And I say this: if your team doesn't win the Super Bowl in 2019, do they tear down the stadium and stop playing in 2020?
No, of course not.
So I really, so these arguments about this happened and this is what, yeah, it's called mistakes. And that's the reason why we look back at what happened and then we say, well, how can we avoid doing the same goddamn thing again? See, I don't look at the relationship. I believe that the relationship between African Americans and continental Africans could be mutually beneficial if we would just stop being so one-dimensional in our thinking. I do not think that the only way that you can go over to the continent and establish a land base is by slaughtering the natives.
No,
I totally reject that.
I did not say that.
No, I'm not speaking about you.
Yeah,
I'm talking about this. I'm dealing with talking points that I've heard before.
Oh, got you. No, I understand. I understand where you're coming from.
Has anybody that's saying this actually sat down and had a conversation with government leaders in Africa, in any country? And first of all, who's going to have the conversation? Because we're not even organized here.
I would absolutely agree with you. I think organization ultimately starts with us first, and then we'll spread abroad. As a matter of fact, that's exactly why I support the idea of ADOS. And to be clear, because I saw some people in chat, I am watching the chat. I will say this: I don't believe nor desire any type of ill will, rancor, bloodshed between Black folk of any stripe. I've mentioned that before. I don't see the need why I need to keep mentioning that instead of having my character assassinated. But what I will say,
they wilding out in the chat room.
Well,
don't look at the chat room, brother. Put the chat room down. Don't look at it.
But what I will say is this: I think that history does have some valuable lessons for us. In many contexts, whether it's talking about, in a sense, repatriating to the continent, or if it's about, building land-based infrastructure and so on and so forth here, right? At the end of the day, I will be honest with you and say that I'm not arrogant enough to claim that I would know or be able to even speak intelligibly as to what a true end game would look like. I can tell you what I would like to see. And again, what I would like to see is a combination of what I think Brother Dynast has, kind of gotten on board with, which is support the justice claim and the work for that effort here in the United States, while looking at other options to allow for growth, protection, so on and so forth. elsewhere. And no, I didn't ignore the supporters, by the way. I did see a lot of people in there supporting me. I do appreciate them, by the way. Thank you.
Brother, if you know what's so funny, and Dinas, you there, Dinas?
No, I'm right here. Yeah, I'm here.
Tell me if you agree with this. If the ADOS position was what you just stated, we
Right.
would have absolutely no problem. There
But
wouldn't be any conflicts. There wouldn't be any, all this craziness and this back and forth. The problem is what you just presented is not what the founders envisioned.
and brother, that's what I was trying to say. Like they are, like, in the words of Holism,
Anti-African to the core.
anti-African, Captain Black American. That's what they are.
Again,
I'm talking
just
about
don't
the
understand.
founders. The problem is
the founders of the hashtag. I can definitely understand where that sentiment comes from, but Mark Black can only truly speak for Mark Black, and I support ADOS as an idea whose time has come. I think that the creation of the hashtag was a beautiful move, but do I think that it's all go rah 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 America, whatever, and damn Africans? No, I think that I think that we definitely need to have some serious, clear conversations about what truly has been the dynamic between Africans from, say, the continent and diaspora Africans and ADOS. I truly believe that is a part of the conversation. And I think a lot of people, to be honest, do not want to have that conversation, right? They in a lot of ways, I feel like that ADOS people get gaslighted a lot, right? We get told that our experience with immigration, with how other groups interact with us, with the relative positions that they're able to come over here and acquire, and the attitudes with which they do it, we get told that we're wrong for saying that we find those attitudes, those actions, those ideas to be repugnant, and we find them unacceptable, right? When we're establishing our boundaries as a specific and distinct group, we have every right to say that there are certain ways that we refuse to be interacted with, that there's certain things that we refuse to accept, and people are not used to hearing us speak in that fashion, so they accuse us of being right wing and aligning and kissing the ass of white folk and so on and so forth. But the fact is that at the end of the day, what we're asking for from continental immigrants or continental Africans, diaspora Africans, everybody else, is just to return to us the same thing that we historically have been returning to you. If we have been open and accepting to you and not really putting the smack down and acting against your interests, then why are you acting against ours?
Are we talking about immigrants here in America?
This is the only place currently of which I concern myself, is immigrants to America. Yes.
But I think this is the issue. The problem is a lot of ADOS spend so much time and energy attacking Black immigrants versus who I think are a much more bigger threat, which is white women and basically non-Black immigrants. I think that's the problem.
Oh, can I also say something too?
Go ahead.
Dynas is always talked about. Like on his channel, he talks about African immigrant, like the problems that people have. We've within the Black nationalist and African-centered progressive demographic have always talked about that. The difference is we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't come to, like, our conclusion is not, well, fuck those immigrants, fuck these Africans. Right, that's not our conclusion.
But for a lot of ADOS, that's the conclusion. Like, I've always been African first, no matter how much I rant and get on African immigrants and rant about Africa and how things are being reciprocated. I've always stayed African first. Black people need the nation of our own first, period, always. But for some reason, ADOS thinks that things are going to be done without Africa, and that, by begging for a position and jockeying for position under white supremacy makes more sense than building a nation of your own or going back to Africa, which to me is just crazy.
And my position is,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
My position is, you're not going to organize. Oh God, logistically, it's damn near impossible to get some type of organization here in America. It's just too much shit. The system is so much against us. We're like second and third class citizens here. We don't control any aspect of the infrastructure. We don't have any socioeconomic or political control anywhere. There's not an ADOS dirt road in America. And my thing is, in order for you to organize, you got to get free from the bullshit. And you're not going to do that here. It's like telling a woman who's in an abusive relationship in her home, oh, well, sister, all you got to do is do some yoga. Well, how you going to do a yoga when this nigga is punching you in your head? You got to get out of the house and get away from him.
I will say this. Again, it really comes back to me, for me, I should say. And I don't think I could say it any clearer than this. What everyone is stating that ADOS people in America should be doing runs counter to essentially what everyone else, everywhere else has done. Everybody everywhere else, whether they have been a minority group or a majority group being held hostage by a minority group, like in South Africa, and this, that, and the third, have ultimately had to come to grips with the system in which, in the country or the confines in which they live, and they've had to start with politics, right? So at the end of the day, if you don't think that ADOS has brought anything else to the table, right, understand this. ADOS has made it clear where the line in the sand is for us, to where we start our push for everything that it is that we all say we want, right? ADOS has stated that this movement ultimately will have to start, and to a certain extent end, politically, right? If we're not willing to play politics where we live, I'm not certain exactly how it is that we're ever going to be able to do any of the other things that we want to talk about. Like, people want to talk about moving, large groups of us to Africa and so on and so forth, right?
Nope.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying
Okay.
this is I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about in general, right? People are talking about repatriating in large groups back to Africa and things like that, and so on and so forth, right? Well, I think it's legitimate for any ADOS person who's espousing that to ask some clear questions about how Africa itself is operating, with the effects of the Chinese and other groups coming into Africa will be on the continent and different groups as a whole, right? Like, it's so easy to point. I think that I'll be honest with you. I think that people who come and attack ADOS just like to punch down. That's all it really is, right? You know that as a group that relative, most of these people that come here, whether they're Black immigrants or non-Black immigrants or otherwise, know that regardless of whatever happens to them, they're never going to have to be on the bottom. This is only one group that is set up here so far in America to be at the bottom, right? So the point of fact is that to try and compare us to anybody else is essentially nonsensical. It's like comparing apples to kumquats. No one else really shares the same situation, the same circumstances under which we operate. They punch down, right? So, people will say, I'll be honest with you, I've learned to let a lot of criticism roll off my back, right? People will say stuff like you niggas is begging, y'all kissing ass a white man. I just kind of look at it and laugh and say, well, hey, you know what? If you have a better way, show us, right? Because I keep myself open, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna sit here and say that we cannot make changes here. I've never believed that ADOS people can't make a change in America, right? We definitely can. I'm just saying that I believe that we need to establish what we can here for the majority of people that I don't believe are going to leave America, because I just don't see a major push for ADOS people to just up and leave, right? Or
can I address that?
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Because that's the major straw. And I'm not saying you, but I'm saying that this is what they use against Black nationalists and African-centered progressives. First, no one, I don't know any nationalist that's talking about moving mass amounts of people from America to Africa. If that's I would love to know who that is so I can address them, because I don't know anybody who's saying that.
So, Brother
But we
Hollip says, and let me ask you a question then, right? If we're not talking about, in a sense, repatriation, as many of us as we can to somewhere else, to build a nation, right?
Mhm.
So if we're only like, if we're only talking about a particular group or a particular set of Black folk here in America, or ADOS folk in America, right? Then I don't understand what the pushback is against ADOS, because
you got. Oh, I thought
ADOS
you were
is
gonna say. I thought you were
no
gonna
no
say the pushback against us, because I
no no
don't
no the
understand
push
it either.
yeah, the pushback against ADOS is saying what we would like to do for Black Americans, for ADOS Americans here in the United States, all of us. We're not discounting anybody. We're not saying anybody can't be a part of it. We're saying that if you share our heritage and our lineage, you're a part of this justice claim, and let's get it, right? So I mean, we're not talking about, particular groups of people, or making a spot where only a few can go, or whatever the case may be. ADOS is all inclusive. If you share the lineage, you share the claim, right? I don't
But
understand the pushback.
the claim to what? All right, we're getting off
Go ahead.
track because I was gonna make a point.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
Wait, where was I with the Oh man, where did I lost my train of thought? It was we were talking about. What were we talking about before you just started talking? What was the point? I was going somewhere.
I'm sorry, Hollip says, and we were talking about we were discussing. Let me see if I can remember. Give me a second. We were discussing damn it.
Oh, I know what it is. Sorry,
Okay,
I
no,
got it.
go
I
ahead.
got it. The straw man is that we want to have a mass movement to the continent. Right now, we have an organization called the BAIO. I'm sure you know about it.
Yep, I've actually participated in a few of your meetings. I respect the BAIO
Okay.
highly. Yeah.
What we are interested in is getting people of like mind who are interested in having a nation of their own. Those are the only people that we want. We're not if you're ADOS and you're down with that, welcome to the fold.
Mm-hmm.
We're not discriminating against you or anything like that. What we're saying is the only people that's interested in going to the continent are the only people that we're talking about. So what I don't understand is why we're getting pushed back.
Good question.
Because why, we always said we have no problem with ADOS doing whatever they want to do in America. We are not going to stand in front of you and curse you. We have no interest in trying to be a roadblock in that. Our question is,
I'll be the first one. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
why are we getting such pushback when we only talking about the people that want to go to the continent to establish the nation? We're not trying to we're not having a reverse transatlantic slave trade. We're going to drag our people in chains back to Africa. So why is that the talking point that I keep constantly hearing when that's not what we're about?
I'll be the first one to tell you, Hollipsism. I don't have an issue with that at all. So you won't get any pushback from me. And point of fact, I truly, honestly believe that there should be some development. Again, I think brother Dynast and I found ourselves in a place of agreement in that I think that it makes perfect sense to push as hard as we possibly can, using whatever means we have necessary to pursue and establish and resolve this justice claim that we have here in the United States, and to also encourage movement, growth, and positions elsewhere, to just be honest about it, right?
So we
So
might as well end this live stream because we're all in agreement. What else is there to talk about? Because that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We've always said that.
Yeah,
We've always said it.
Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive at all. I see no perfectly good reason why I should be against brothers and sisters who want to establish those ties with the continent or other diaspora nations and so on and so forth. Again, as an ADOS proponent and advocate, the only thing that I am about is ensuring that ADOS, for my tribe, my group, our interests come before everyone else's, that we don't mule for everyone else if we're not muling for ourselves, if we're not working for ourselves
I
to
agree.
establish what we need, right?
I
That's the
agree
only thing. And
1000%.
people, I think what it is though is that people attack different groups and things like that. I'm not that guy. right? I'm about attacking ideas if I need to, right? And getting the truth wherever I can get it, right? So I think people need to perhaps be more open to ideas that are necessary, that are not necessarily in their wheelhouse, right? Because this is uncharted territory for a lot of us anyway. You see
Right.
what I'm saying, right? All of this discussion is new, right? So the fact is that we have to allow for people to grow, right? To get other opportunities to reach out in a spirit of discussion rather than a spirit of I'm trying to prove my point, and win the
Exactly.
argument no matter what. And let's see what we're able to develop, right?
Right.
Because I believe that there's a lot of great ideas, a lot of good people that are going to be involved ultimately with what we all claim we want, which is autonomy, freedom, our due, justice, righteousness, and so on and so forth, a place of safety, and so on and so forth. I think we all share that same goal. And we may differ in some places on how to get there. Let's work those differences out and let's get some work done.
A freaking men. That's all I gotta say.
Hey, this is the first time that Holub has been on a live stream that has not cussed somebody out. This is the first.
I'm enjoying the fact that we can have a conversation because that's really ultimately what I want to do. I want to have discussions and conversations and us try to come to some type of middle ground or common ground on something. And I feel we did that. Like anybody that listens to this, I think they're going to get some value out of this conversation. It's
I,
not
I,
it's
I
not a
agree.
going back and forth and trying to be intellectual and all this bullshit. We're actually having a discussion, asking questions honestly, giving honest answers. That's the way this is supposed to go. And like I said, I've always been down. Like I want to know about ADOS and I want to know the different perspectives, what people see. I want to present how I see things because
Mhm.
just to sum up my view, I feel that we should start developing our nation state first. Before you can start organizing, you got to get a place to organize. You have to have a base of operations. And I believe that when we have that base of operations, the first group that's going to benefit from that is ADOS in America. Because guess what? I'm ADOS.
I'm made
Why would
up
I be
too.
against myself? That's the reason why we're trying to establish something on the continent so that we can help uplift our brothers and sisters here in America. So
I
who
hear
can
you.
possibly be against that?
You know what? I'm gonna. I feel like that Dynasty is probably gonna end this. So what I'm gonna say
No,
is
no, no,
this.
bro. Take,
Uh,
take, take your time. I
oh
mean,
no, no, Dynasty, because I'm gonna have to split anyway, brother.
okay,
But
okay, okay.
what I want to say is this. First of all, I want to thank everyone in the chat for showing their support, their love to Brother Dynasty, to myself, to Brother Holipsism. Y'all are truly the reason why I think we do what it is that we do. Whether you agree with us or disagree with us, we are glad to have the opportunity to talk with you, to speak with you, to share with you, right? So I think I feel comfortable speaking for you, Dynasty and Holipsism, and saying that, right? Second of all, I want to issue an open invite to you, Brother Dynasty, as well as you, Brother Holipsism, to come and engage anytime you like on my channel. Black Outcast Media is it's not my channel. It's a platform for sharing information with everybody, right? So I would love to have an opportunity to have a sit down with one or both or any of you at any point to discuss any topic that suits your fancy. I want to issue that open invite to you. My house is your house, right? And I want to thank you, Brother Dynasty, for the opportunity to just be here today and speak what little bit I'm able to do. And I hope I was able to edify. I hope I was able to provide some degree of clarity for matters that may have been unclear.
It did for me. It did for me.
Mm.
Could you put is his link in the description
Yeah,
box?
yeah. Put your yeah. What's your link?
Here,
Brother.
let me type hello,
'Cause I
fam,
will
to the
definitely
fam
be
in here.
I'll definitely be down to be on your show, bro.
True.
Definitely down.
Yeah, if you guys, if you click my name there, you'll be able to go right to my channel and
Okay.
subscribe and so on and so forth. Yeah, much respect to all of you. Like I said, I one of the things that ADOS has taught me, believe it or not, I know it sounds crazy, me being 46 years old, but one of the things that ADOS has taught me is to not assume malice, right?
Right.
People have reasons why they adhere to different positions, different ideas, and so on and so forth. Once you discover those reasons, you might more often than not find a place of agreement rather than a place of disagreement. So I never assume malice. I assume that everybody I speak with is intelligent, has a reason for adhering to the position they have, and we can have a reasoned discussion.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
And don't forget, y'all, sign up to the BAIO. We got people of like mind that want their own nation. And if you feel the same, get down with us.
Let's see here. Let me put the link in the chat room.
Yeah, get down.
Man, brothers, I appreciate it. I really enjoyed this this
Yeah,
dialogue
me too.
and this
Me too.
this
It's
engagement.
nice to be able to talk to somebody who is reasonable. I never have a problem with that. It's just too many clowns. And you know, Diana's, that's the reason why I get on them. Is
Right.
don't come at me as a clown. Don't try to don't be dishonest. Like if you don't really want to have a conversation to reach some type of agreement with each other, or at least try to understand each other, then what you're trying to do is just out intellectualize me.
Well, you know what, Holipsism, I have a real problem myself. This is just a personal aside. I've often talked about on my channel the lack of debate amongst our people. We don't debate, right? Because the purpose of a debate is not that everybody walks away thinking what they thought when the debate started. The debate is designed to change minds, to establish a clear chain and a clear argument that when everyone walks away, they're all thinking one way. We don't debate. We have, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, but it's definitely not debate. You know what I'm saying? Like if you make a point, Dynas, and it's a solid point, and you've established with a clear chain of premises the rightness of your point more correctly than I have, when we walk away from this discussion, I need to be thinking like you, not me thinking what I was thinking when I showed up. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know what it is that we let pass for debate, but it's definitely not debate. So I share the same lament there, brother. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. Well, brothers, I appreciate it. Make sure you guys go to the BAIO and sign up, and also make sure you go to Brother Mark's page and subscribe as well. I really enjoyed this dialogue. Everyone, thank you for joining. Make sure you go to search for Huru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube platform, family. Until next time, family. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.